Hey, Buffy fans, and hey, TV fans. I should have said that the other way around. Welcome board now, Rachel McDonald, back here to do a deep dive, I should say, a full spoiler discussion of Buffy season 5, about seasons in the Buffyverse, as we get what was originally going to be the very end of the show. And Buffy, as a result of how season 4 ended, starts becoming more interested in her past, in the Slayer heritage, and finding out more about the Slayer line in general. So that becomes a big thing for her this season, which almost becomes a theme of her being drawn a little more to the dark side, which I think links up with some of the stuff we get with her and Spike in the season. Spike starts moving closer to the good side, if you want to put it that way. The other big storyline is the Dawn storyline. We get the surprised introduction of Dawn Summers, played by Michelle Trachtenberg, who was a newcomer at the time. Mystical ball of energy known as the Key, who the big bad for the season, Claire Kramer, who plays Glory, is trying to find mystery over who Dawn is exactly, because she's randomly planted at the end of the opening into the Buffy household as Buffy's sister, as if nothing has happened. And then once we find out, you've got the whole thing on the side of Glory, who's trying to track down and find out what the key is, who the key is, if you like. And that becomes the whole tension throughout the season. Once Buffy learns exactly what's going on with Dawn, and then protecting that. And there's other big themes like the stuff with her mother, Joyce. So it really deals with a big dramatic part of growing up in that sense. What do you think of season 5?
So I will say season 5 for the longest time was my favorite season. I still think, as far as the narrative arc and the big bad and the way that Glory and Dawn and the Key and all of that ties in together, I still think that is actually the strongest arc that Buffy has ever had. And we will talk more about that. I did, however, find on this watch, though, that there were a few things that were bugging me about this season, and a few things that I think maybe might prevent it from being as high up on my list as it used to be. Nothing huge, just a few little nitpicks here and there. There are a handful of not so great episodes, 3 in particular towards the middle of the season, that kind of halt the narrative. 2 characters that I find to be very superfluous this season and who kind of take up screen time unnecessarily. One is Spike, which we'll obviously talk about later on, and the other is Riley, and what they decide to do with Riley's character and the narrative that they build around Riley's character and Riley and Buffy's relationship. Definitely issues there. However, I love some of the characterization in this season, particularly for Buffy, for Dawn. Willow and Tara both get some great development this season and some great moments. There is some really nice foreshadowing for what's going to happen with Willow down the line with her magic. When we spoke about season 4, I spoke about how I wasn't really liking Anya, and I was feeling how she was just kind of hanging around. That changed this season. I actually really quite enjoyed Anya this season. I liked the little arc that they gave her with joining Giles in the magic box, and I also found that she felt more integrated into the Scoobies this season than she was last season. When last season she was very much kind of just Xander's girlfriend, this season she felt more like a Scooby member, and there were several times throughout the season where she's actually really helpful. So I definitely enjoyed Tara more this season. Dawn, we're definitely going to talk about Dawn and everything to do with her character, because oh my god, poor Dawnie, just the stuff that she goes through this season and just her existence in general. Watching Buffy versus Dracula and knowing what was coming at the end, even when you know it's coming, it still feels like one of the bigged wham moments in the entire series. Just that, Buffy, if you're going out, why don't you take your sister? And I've said this before, I watched Buffy all completely out of order when I first watched it. So I did actually find out about Dawn when when it was first airing, but by the time I got to watch season 5, I had forgotten about Dawn's existence. So when that moment happened, I remember being so confused. I was like, what is happening? And then the way that they work around that mystery, I think, is fantastic. And of course, Glorificus. Like, Glory has always been my favorite big bad, and rewatching this season and Claire Kramer's performance, like, Claire Kramer always plays a variation of this type of character, but I think that this particular character is the best version of that character type for her, and it gives her the most fun to like play with some emotions and some range and depth. So, you know, she's a lot of fun. And I think that, yeah, this season is overall really quite strong, has some great storylines. The Joyce storyline is heartbreaking and made me feel so much for Buffy. I will say right now, I was not able to watch The Body because it is just with everything that's happened with me recently, it was hitting a little too close to home. Yeah, so I did skip The Body, but I have seen the series enough that we will be able to talk about it. It's obviously a very high-profile episode, and then of course once we go through the season, I mean, this season's finale is like just extraordinary, absolutely perfect. So I do think overall season 5 is still a really strong season, but there are some issues I have with it that I may not have had earlier. So rewatching it has brought up some stuff that made me go, oh, this could have been handled better. But overall, I had a really fun time watching this. What about you?
Yeah, I think this is a great season. Like you said, the storytelling is just so strong. The arc is definitely up there with the best arcs of Buffy. You've got in Glory one of the best villains of all of Buffy. Claire Kramer is so good in that role. She has a really memorable debut, and just from that moment on, pretty much every episode she's in, she's really effective, and there's a lot of entertaining scenes with her. But like you said in another video, she also carries a threat, and they do a good job of transitioning with that stuff. And then by the end, or certainly at times throughout the season, there's some darker stuff with Glory as well. Like, I think the stuff of her draining energy from people is really dark at times, and like the certain scene with Tara later in the season is pretty dark. So there's actually some unsettling stuff with Glory, and I think the storytelling and the way the characters react and they build her up, and you have that reveal where with Quentin Travis in an episode where he says, yeah, she's not a demon, she's a god. That just gives her like this big villain style feel. So I think the build up to Glory and the reveal of her and just everything that happens with her pretty much sets her up as one of the great big bads of the show. It's a great discovery really for Claire Kramer, who at the time would have been a pretty much unknown actress. And Michelle Trachtenberg makes a really great debut on the show. Like you, I'm really invested in the Dawn the Key storyline because it's such a unique thing for them to have done. And like you said, it is a great gotcha moment, like at the end of Buffy v Dracula. And for such a young actress at the time, and again, virtually unknown, she does a great job because there's so many difficult scenes for her. I know, like with certain people in the fandom, there is a hate sort of thing going on where they do find her quite great in the character, and there's moments like that. But I think overall they get a good balance where the story is so compelling, and I think she does such a great job in the role. Then it does make you sort of root for Dawn and care for Dawn and get invested in the whole storyline. The 3 seasons that she's in, I think Dawn does grow quite a lot.
Oh, definitely.
Like 5 is probably the best storyline for her, but I do think as a character she actually gets quite a bit of growth after season 5. And I think for Buffy, it's another massive season. I like her whole direction in the season, like exploring the past and the roots and the whole first Slayer thing, the way that's brought back up. And Scoobies have really good arcs or really good developments. I think Tara has a grows again this season. Some really great stuff with her and Willow. I agree that Anna has a better season this round. I think when it comes to episodes, it's actually a really strong season, because I think there's a good 3 or 4 episodes that are really up there and really strong episodes. Gems. There's episodes that go under the radar that I think deserve more love. I mean, I would say something like Checkpoint is one of them. I think
I do love Checkpoint.
And I would say, we can get to it, but Crush is another one. I think Crush is another fantastic episode which gets overlooked and is a bit of a gem. But there are some other ones, like quite early in the season. No Place Like Home, I think that's a really good episode. That's probably another quite... And it's so funny because we're going to talk about the Riley stuff, but despite the end of Into the Woods, I actually think that's another really strong episode. It's mostly the ending of it that lets it down, but throughout the episode, I'm actually quite into that. So I think the episodes this season are generally really strong. There's very few weaker ones. Spike, Riley stuff that you brought up. Now, there's no surprise. I agree more on the Riley stuff than I do the Spike stuff, because Spike is fantastic in this season.
He is.
No, he's great.
No, we're going to have so many arguments about this. This is, oh God, I wanted to drop kick Spike out of window for the entire freaking season.
We will, and I'm going to make my case pretty strong, and I'm going to tell you why.
I'll make mine pretty strongly too. So
that's good. I look forward to it. But
Before
just to sum up,
all of that.
just to sum up, I think Spike has great character growth this season. I think there's an arc which he goes on over the course. No, he does. No, don't argue now. We'll get to it later. But I'm just making my general point before we circle back to it later. But I think he does, and I'll make my case later when we get there. You still get a lot of the great Spike dialogue and lines that we know him for, very entertaining along the way. I'm assuming you're probably going to disagree with me on Fall for Love, but I think Fall for Love is a standout episode. I think that's...
when we get to that, I'll tell you my thoughts on that episode. I have conflicting thoughts on that episode.
Conflict.
So, yeah.
That's fair. But yeah, by the end of the season, I'll say also I really love the scenes with him and Dawn. I think they have some great scenes together. And I think that's a big part of my argument.
About underrated episodes. I think one of the most underrated episodes in Buffy Season 5 is actually the opener. Buffy versus Dracula is one of my favorite season openers. I think it is so much fun, and I think it deserves so much more love. And I think by your face, we're definitely going to disagree on this, but I love
I didn't
Buffy
see this
versus
coming.
Dracula. Oh my God, I have loved this episode for pretty much since I first saw it. I thought, first of all, the idea of bringing Dracula into the Buffyverse is fantastic, because I mean, he's only like the most famous vampire of all time. And secondly, I absolutely love, and I think this is where we're probably going to disagree because I know what your tastes are like, but I love that they went with the hammy, cheesy, like campy version of Dracula, and instead of like a more serious version. So I think Buffy versus Dracula is so much fun. I love that they make Xander the Renfield character eating spiders and making all sorts of stupid comments. Giles with the Dracky brides is fantastic. And the guy who plays Dracula, I think he and Sarah have acted together before on All My Children. They played a married couple, which I find interesting. But I just have so much fun. And I remember, I think it was Jane Espenson in an interview was talking about how the way they wanted it to come across is they wanted it to be like a rock star had come to town, like a movie star had come to town, and they wanted everyone to react to him like that. And so I really, really love it. Like, I love when they're at Giles's place and they're talking about like how he turned into the Bat, and then Anya's all like, "Oh yeah, we hung out a few times back in my demon days," trying to like sound cool. And then Spike's whole, filthy Ponzo owes me 12 pounds. And it's like, yeah, okay. And also the ending. I absolutely love the end when Buffy stakes him, and then when he tries to go back, I just love that. You think I don't watch your movies? You always come back. And then I'm standing right here. And I just thought that was fantastic. Plus, it is kind of Dracula that sets Buffy on her whole path, because she says to Giles that Dracula saw darkness in her power. The fact that she lets him feed off her and then she feeds off him obviously opens her up to like a door of like, where does my power come from? Why am I drawn to this dark side? What is it in my power that maybe comes from darkness? And that kind of sets her on her whole path. So for me, Buffy vs. Dracula is just fantastic, but I can tell by your face that you're not agreeing with me. So let's have it out.
I was about to say the opposite. When you said it's one of your favourite season openers, I think it's the weakest season opener of any season. No, I think it really is. I just don't find it that funny or entertaining. Like, I can see. I just think it's pretty lame and old hat. And I think to do it in season 5, because in a way, like, doing that version of a vampire feels more like season 1, and I can sort of see how it appeals to like actually do something like really meta like that and actually have Dracula and stuff, but it's just I don't find it that entertaining to watch throughout the episode. I think there's just a lot of really stupid moments. There's funny stuff in the episode. I'm not saying there's not. There is funny stuff in the episode. I mean, I do enjoy Giles with the 3 sisters. That's really fun stuff. But so there's obviously good stuff in the episode, but just to watch, it's a bit of a slog, which I don't find that interesting or entertaining. I think the actor playing Dracula does a pretty good job, and I think I've heard that he played Dracula before that as well.
Yes, I think he has, in like Vlad the Impaler or something. But he's played a version of the character before,
But it's just that I don't really find his character that interesting to watch. I don't really find this idea of Buffy being attracted to him but trying to hide it from Riley that interesting. I just think a lot of the jokes have been done before and been done better, and I just find it a slog of an episode to watch, really. So for me, I'm not saying it's terrible, but it's definitely on the mediocre, forgettable line for me, where like, to me, it's easily the weakest season opener of Buffy. And the ending with Dawn is definitely the highlight of the episode.
It does contain there's some very important bits in Buffy versus Dracula. Obviously, you've got the opening with Buffy going out and hunting, as opposed to patrolling, which obviously is due to taking in the essence of the first Slayer, which obviously does come back into play. You have Giles contemplating leaving, which obviously we see him do over this season and the next season until, obviously season 6 has the conclusion to that. I also think it's absolutely adorable in this episode. Willow's the only one who knows that Giles is leaving, and so the whole episode she's trying to like make Giles feel included and like talking about like, oh, I wish Giles was there, and I think that's very cute. And of course we've got that talk between Buffy and Giles at the end where she asks him to be her watcher again, which I actually think is a really beautiful scene and is done really well, and obviously sets Buffy up. And then of course you've got that wham moment right at the end, which I mean, I just love, like, Dawn seems like a storyline that they pulled out of their butts, but they've been planning this storyline for like 2 years. So it was definitely something that they were ready for. And when you watch the way the next few episodes unfold, I think when I was watching it this time, I was just really appreciating how well they did the mystery of Dawn, you know, because it's what, like 3 or 4 episodes before you actually find out who she is. So for those 3 or 4 episodes, you're not only massively confused, you're trying to figure out what exactly is going on, you know, and they have all those very clever, like, you know, words from Dawn, like when she's writing in her diary and she's like, she has no idea who she's dealing with. Well, she's going to find out, which is something that your typical 14-year-old might write. But when you don't know where this 14-year-old's come from, it's like, oh, is that a threat? And I think that Michelle, like you said, she's very, very good. And I think she very easily slipped into this role of Buffy's little sister. Like when we watch the second episode of season 5, their dynamics in the household, it really does feel like she's always been here. You know, like I love that scene. Oh, it's so relatable as an older sibling. But that scene where Buffy's getting ready for breakfast, then she puts out her bowl and Dawn steals her bowl. And then she puts out the cereal and Dawn steals the cereal. And then Dawn uses the last of the milk. And I'm like, that is like just little things like that. I think Michelle had really good chemistry with both Sarah and with Christine Sutherland, and that the three of them worked really well as a family unit, and that's why we buy Dawn as Buffy's sister, despite the fact that she hasn't been here for 4 seasons. So I think moving on from like Buffy versus Dracula, like the way that they slowly unravel the mystery of Dawn, that entire episode that's told from her point of view with her voiceover, you know, saying all these things that we know aren't true, you know, like, oh, Buffy's always done this and I remember this. And it's like, where did you come from? How do you have all these memories? What is going on? And of course, we get that hint, like right in the second episode, you see the first crazy person come up to Dawn and say, you know, I know who you are, Kurds and Way. And you're like, what is going on? So I found when I was watching this time, because obviously we know who Dawn is, I was just watching the way that they were kind of slowly revealing and playing all the tricks. And I found it really fun to watch those first handful of episodes when you don't know who Dawn is and the way they work that around. Did you have fun watching that this time around as well?
Yeah, I did. And I think that second episode, Real Me, having it from Dawn's perspective is a really smart choice. Yes. Her and her diary and the little comments and, just her reacting to everyone is so funny. Like, you know, thinking Xander's like the coolest, being grossed out with Buffy and Riley. Oh, that is, I just love that various bit. Things. But I also like how over the course of the season, like you get how close she is to like Tara and Willow and almost how they are in a way, because it's so tense with her and Buffy at times, which is really relatable and true to life with families, especially if you're a teenager. So for her to have Willow and Tara almost as like the cooler sort of friends, cool aunts almost, kind of. The episodes, I did find Buffy's is too harsh on Dawn, like because there's just too many times where she's like ragging on her, and even when Dawn does something which helps Buffy out and is like, she covers for her and stuff, she'll still fire back with a comment that says, you know, you're an annoying pain in the butt or something like that. And I guess it's probably quite true to life, and you can see why Buffy does it, often where it grates a little bit.
Look, the thing is, I definitely understand like where you're coming from, because it does seem harsh, but as an older sister who has younger sisters, no, this is 100% relatable, especially when you are given the responsibility of your younger sibling and you really don't want that responsibility. And I think that that actually does, like, I do agree. There are some times where I'm like, okay, Buffy, you could ease up. But then I remember, no, that's actually what siblings are like. And especially we have to remember Buffy herself at this point is only 19. You know, it's not like she's like really overly mature. And I think they just really want to show that she and Dawn just have that kind of sibling dynamic from the beginning. Because I have to admit, like when I first watched season 5, like I was so on Buffy's side. Like Dawn irritated the shit out of me. Like I really wanted this little brat to just bugger off, because and I get this a lot. It's actually really funny. My best friend and I talk about this a lot because she is a youngest sibling and I'm an eldest sibling. So we find whenever we watch things like this, she will be overly sympathetic with the younger one and I will be overly sympathetic with the older one, just because of that relatability of what it's like to be in those positions in the family. So while I do get where you're coming from, I think they wrote it that way so that older siblings can really kind of go, oh yeah, this is absolutely what it's like to have a younger sibling and to have to deal with them. And I think as well, and we see this is obviously a big theme over this season with Buffy and Dawn, not just with Dawn being the key, but with Dawn being her sister. Eldest siblings, eldest daughters in particular, do often get shoved into almost mini parent roles. You know, parents will, I mean, I got that all the time when I was younger. My dad telling me, you are responsible for your siblings, you need to look after them. And then you have this kind of resentment from the siblings that, because they don't want you to like babysit them or look after them, and also you're not the parent, so they know that they don't have to, you know, respect your authority. And I think that they really got that in the Buffy and Dawn relationship, you know, Buffy being responsible for Dawn and Dawn resenting that responsibility. And so while I do understand where you're coming from, and I know the line that you're talking about, that's when Dawn's like, come on, who's the man? She's like, you are. A very short, annoying man. And Dawn's just like, really? So yeah, but I think they also did that to show the very like normal sibling relationship, so that when the relationship morphs into something different, you've got that basis to kind of build it on. Like we see that they really are real, genuine siblings. Like, yes, the monks might have put the memories in, but the bond is very real. So I do get where you're coming from, but being an eldest sibling, I can't help but be on Buffy's side, especially when Dawn's always like trailing around where she doesn't belong and where she's always trying to get in where she's, you know, where she's not particularly wanted. And I guess younger siblings probably watch this going, oh my God, poor Dawn, I know what that's like. But like I said, I'm an older sibling, so I'm watching this going, oh, poor Buffy, just that responsibility is just like, ugh. But I do think they do such a good job of it in the beginning.
Well,
yeah.
Well, okay, so that works out because I am a younger sibling, so I guess that could explain why I'm on the other side. But it's just, I think there's just one or two too many times when she does it, so I think that's
I get that.
where I'm thinking it great. But I can definitely
once it starts to
see
age off a little bit.
Yeah. And they do have really good chemistry, and it's also worth saying it was Sarah Michelle Gellar's idea for Michelle Trachtenberg to be. They had worked together, so it was her idea. So that's a really great bit of story and a great find by Sarah Michelle Gellar. You can imagine no one else playing Dawn now. Trachtenberg really marks down that sort of role. Inside, it's Out of My Mind, which is a bit of a weird one because Riley. It's sort of it's half Riley but also a little bit of Spike, because that's sort of implemented. You've got Spike and Harmony back together, which is pretty good fun, I've got to say.
Harmony! Before we go into this, can we just quickly talk about Harmony's gang? Because, oh my God, is that not the best thing ever? Oh, so good! And Buffy's reaction to it, just the hysterical laughter, and the Harmony has minions. And also, the Slayer come out and die with a smiley face over the eye. Just everything about Harmony's gang is fantastic. Plus, we get to see Tom Lenk as a vampire before we see him in annoying Andrew.
I was going to say that. That's funny.
That is funny,
I will just say, the only thing about that stuff with Buffy is she's not very good at, forcing laughter, if you see what I mean. It's sort of
Sarah has actually
there's a couple of scenes like that. Yeah, you can tell it's her trying to force it rather than you're convinced it's a person naturally laughing. But I remember reading something that Sarah does not like scenes like that because, she can't laugh on cue. She can cry on cue, which we've definitely seen. She's fantastic, but she's not great when it comes to fake laughter. And you do definitely see it in that scene. Now her arch nemesis and is after her, which I think is absolutely hilarious because she's not even a blip on Buffy's radar, you know? So I just find that part really funny. Riley stuff. You've got some reintroduction of the initiative and this idea, then is he tempted back to his old sort of ways, especially now it's a different setup with them. But yeah, there's some pretty boring stuff with Riley. I think but the Spike stuff I actually do like, and I do like that we return to him wanting to get his chip back out, and some of that drama, I think it sort of fits Spike that he's ever the opportunist, and he sees that as an opportunity. And I do actually quite like the fake out with the Doctor where he uses a penny to pretend.
Yes, I do like that. I thought that was clever.
That's pretty good.
Plus, there's some funny scenes with the Doctor. Like, I love how he's smoking. I like Buffy vs. Dracula. I think that the first 3 episodes of this season are actually really strong. Like Buffy vs. Dracula, Real Me, and The Replacement, which I love The Replacement. I think are really strong episodes, yeah. And then this one kind of pulls it up a bit. Like, I get that we needed to have a little bit of fallout from Riley and the Initiative. And in actuality, I actually think that the Initiative coming back in this episode could have been a better done storyline. And as we talk more about Riley, we'll talk about like his motivations and stuff, because I actually think that Riley's storyline would have been a lot more interesting if it had been like he's torn between staying with Buffy and going back into the Initiative, which obviously it does come to that, but it comes to that through a completely different way. And we have that whole, I mean, it kind of starts here, this whole stupid thing of Riley being like, Buffy's not in love with me. I can't touch Buffy. I can't feel Buffy's love. And because at the end of The Replacement, we get that weird confession that he says, where he says to Xander, and he's like, he's like, you know, oh, but she doesn't love me. And I'm like, huh? Okay, so I know that the poor guy had to see Buffy and Angel standing together in a room in season 4, which is definitely going to shake your confidence, because all you have to do is see those two next to each other and know, okay, yeah, I'm kind of second choice. But it doesn't feel like that's what it's coming from. It's like all of a sudden, and I don't know why the writers decided to do this, because, and this is the part of Riley's storyline that I don't buy. We're suddenly supposed to believe that Buffy doesn't love Riley, that she's not opening herself up to Riley, and that she's leaving Riley behind, which quite frankly, I didn't see any of this season, and I didn't see any of in season 4. I actually think that Riley and Buffy, until this season, actually had a really decent relationship. It had some hiccups, yeah, but I thought it was actually quite good. So I don't understand this whole angle of Riley suddenly saying, you don't love me, you are attracted to the darkness, which is such bullshit. I can't feel you, I can't get close to you. Like, I don't understand where that came from. And I don't like that the season runs with that, and that's the narrative that we're given with regards to Buffy and Riley. It just wasn't working for me. What about you?
I think the problem with it is then I can kind of see what they were going for, and I can probably see certain hints than it is true. Like, there are definitely scenes that they drop in, and there's stuff where she is pulling away a bit, or she's maybe not paying that much attention to him, and there's definitely things where I think it partly comes from her interest in her Slayer roots and her being drawn to that, and maybe he feels left out of that and not enough of a part of that. And then there's just certain things throughout the season, like the Joyce stuff. And the Joyce stuff is some of Riley's worst stuff, because him absolutely trying to make that about him was such a dick move. Like, I can understand it a little bit. He's saying, you know, I'm your boyfriend, I should be there for you. But he makes it about him. He makes it about Buffy should think about telling him first, regardless of what she's going through, and she has other responsibilities. So the way he acts in that scene and around that time is so dickish. So it's a bit of a weird one where I can sort of see where they were going for, and there are certain things, because again it does go back to the stuff with Angel. It goes back to this idea of Riley's just a normal guy, and that's what they're exploring with that relationship. But ultimately maybe Buffy can't settle down with a normal guy, or maybe she doesn't want a normal guy ultimately. But No, I agree with you. It doesn't work because I don't think there's enough clear examples of it in the actual show. Like I can see what they're going for, but it's not. Yeah, there's not enough there actually on screen with the characters.
No,
it just
isn't.
comes out of the blue. You could sort of read it as maybe it's Riley applying a lot of that to it without it necessarily being true. I guess you could read that.
And the thing is, I would read it that way, except unfortunately the show backs Riley's claim. You know, you have that god-awful speech that Xander gives to Buffy, and then in a later episode, she said something about Riley left because I was closed off. And I was like yelling at the TV. I was like, no, sweet baby girl, it was not you, it was him. He's an asshole. Do not blame yourself. And I did not buy this narrative. Plus, I also feel a little bit like Riley... There was I think it's Into the Woods. Yes, it is. It's Into the Woods where Buffy and Riley are in her house together. It's just after Joyce has gotten better. And he says something about like, you've been so strong through all this. I never even saw you cry. And she's like, oh, I cried buckets. I just did it when no one was around. And then there's this look on Riley's face like he's upset that she wasn't. It's like, Riley, you can't be upset because of the way that Buffy chooses to deal with her emotions. And just because she chooses not to do it in front of you. But unfortunately, like, I do think that they maybe did make an error when they decided to put Buffy, Angel, and Riley in the same room together in season 4. Because like I said, you can't be around Buffy and Angel and walk away feeling like you're still the chosen lover, because you're really not. And I do understand if Riley maybe had some insecurities over that, but they only bring up Angel a couple of times, and after that it really becomes about like Buffy's closed off. It basically comes across like Buffy is too independent and too strong for Riley. Riley seems to want someone that will come and cry on his shoulder, someone that he can feel like he's being the protector around. Whereas I think, like I was saying, I think Out of My Mind opened up a line of story that if they built on it, might have been better. Like the Initiative coming back, I think, was a very interesting angle. And maybe if instead, over the next few episodes, we had seen the Initiative calling Riley or trying to interact with Riley, and instead it got to a point where Riley basically says to Buffy, look, you have your mission. I don't have a mission anymore. I need to go back to having a mission. It could have been more about like that, because I do think that Riley is at a loss this season, and that is quite organic to his character, because when we first met him in season 4, he's a military man, you know, he's one of the Initiative, and that's who he is, and his purpose is government and stuff. But then that's gone this season, and he doesn't have anything except for Buffy, and Buffy's not exactly, you know, she's got her own thing. Riley doesn't have anything of his own. So I think that it would have been more interesting to maybe have his battle be, do I stay with Buffy's mission or do I go back to the Initiative mission? And maybe he eventually decided, I think that would have been better than putting the blame at Buffy's feet, because it absolutely is not her fault. And I don't like that the narrative supports Riley and supports that
because
angle.
The way it's written is everyone in the show seems to agree with Riley, because in the next episode, Anna and Xander are blaming Buffy, you know, in that scene at the start of Triangle. And it's clearly, and I'm not sure they ever, because we can talk about it in season 6, but you do get the return of Riley for one episode. And I would have to rewatch that episode, but I can't really remember if Riley, I think he might apologize in that episode, so that's sort of something, but I'm not sure if the show's ever really changed that around where they
I don't think they do
admit that. Because it's one thing if you say there's sort of fault on both ends, like I wouldn't necessarily get on board with that, because I do think the majority of fault is definitely with Riley. And I think Buffy's spot on in that episode, Into the Woods. She's saying, yeah, you're giving me an ultimatum. This is a really shitty thing to do.
Absolutely it is.
But yeah, it is really bizarre to me than the writers seem to take Riley's side in the way they do. I can't really figure that one out. It's very
terrible.
strange. We've also got female writers because, like, Marty Noxon wrote Into the Woods, so,
unfortunately,
I don't know.
females, we are not above some internalized misogyny. It's sad, but
well,
true.
we've got an interesting history with Marty Noxon to talk about.
Yes, we do.
I mean, but she's a great writer. I mean, as I said, I think Into the Woods, if you take out that ending, I think that's a really strong episode. But so it's a conflicting episode because overall, when I rewatch it, damn, this is actually a pretty good episode. So I'm actually surprised knowing the way it ends, and it's actually such a strong episode. And we actually get a good Buffy Riley scene because the scene with them dancing, it's one of the sweeter moments between them. But Riley never really fits into the Scoobies for me, not in a natural way. He just when you see him early in the he just sort of stands out like a sore thumb that he's not quite integrated. And they're obviously trying to do that because the stuff with him and Xander bonding and things like that.
I do like that. That's
not bad.
Yeah, that's probably one of the only Riley dynamics that I actually do like, is that he and Xander actually get some really cute moments. And I feel also, particularly for Xander, who obviously does not mind, but is constantly surrounded by girls. And, he even makes a comment about that later in the season, too many girls. I miss us. So I do like when Xander is given like a male friend. And I think that he and Riley do seem to have a bit of a connection, but yeah, they obviously, they never expand on that. So it doesn't really, I'm with you. I don't think, whenever I think of like Scooby, like iterations, I never really picture Riley. It's either high school Scoobies or the later like seasons 6 and 7 Scoobies, but Riley never really factors into that because you're right. He doesn't really quite fit in.
Like the vampire, like brothel and that stuff and him. Is that a direction you find interesting or not so much?
I think the idea of the vampire brothels are interesting. I don't know how I feel about Riley doing it. Like, he says it's something about like wanting to get back at Buffy with like letting Dracula bite her and stuff, but that was kind of completely different circumstances. I'm wondering if it's more supposed to be like a form of like almost, again, I'm wondering if it's supposed to be like akin to a drug addiction, like you start taking drugs to feel something, or like maybe self-harm, people who self-harm to feel like alive and stuff. So maybe it started as like, I'll let this vampire bite me and maybe I'll understand Buffy's world a bit better. And then I think it just turns into an addiction of like Riley wanting to feel something because he's not feeling enough from Buffy or whatever. So I think it was okay in theory. I don't think it did much for Riley as a character except make him look even more pathetic. And it never really went anywhere. Well, although that being said, I do love the fact that the first vampire who bites him is Sandy from season 3 Doppelgangland. I thought that was a really fun bit of continuity. That's really fun. But yeah, aside from that, not really. What about you? Do you like the vampire brothel storyline?
I think it's an interesting turn, and I think it's a little bit more interesting for Riley as a character because a lot of the other stuff I'm not that into. So I think, him just... It obviously, again, makes him a total douche because, like, there's virtually no reason for him to be tempted elsewhere. And, like, once again, when they're having that argument later on, Buffy is definitely right. She nails it, really. But it's it's a more interesting term for the Riley character to take, like him, just something a bit more darker, and I find it a little bit more interesting. And we're going to talk about Spike anyway, so we won't bring that stuff up here. But definitely the way Spike reacts to that stuff is quite interesting to talk about. But could have done more with it. But it's another side to Sunnydale and the sort of whole thing. This idea of having a vampire brothel. The weakest stuff of the opening half of the season, without doubt. And we're definitely on Buffy's side. Like, Riley is
absolutely. The whole time I'm like, just get out of here. You don't even measure up to her socks, boy. All right, just shoot. You are so not good enough for Buffy Summers. Like, get out of here. No good.
Yeah, and I definitely think, which you said as well, it's one of Xander's lowest point. Like that speech he gives to Buffy. in listening like Into the Woods. I mean, yeah, he's just so wrong, and because even when he gets the wrong end of the stick, and she explains to him that he gave me an ultimatum, he still tries to stand his corner rather than saying, "Oh, okay, you've probably got a point there, Buffy. He is being a bit unfair." He still stands his corner and tries to blame Buffy.
That speech is so bad, but I tend to, okay, this is going to sound weird. I tend to give Xander a little bit of a pass for that speech just because I feel like this was the case of the writers wanting to have this angle of this being Buffy's fault, and they wanted someone to come in and tell her this, so they used the character who always tells her the truth, which is Xander. But I feel like in this instance, it was less of the character and more of the writers wanting to speak through the character.
Sure.
And they kind of picked Xander. See, like, for example, there are some instances where Xander acts out where I'm like, okay, you suck. Like, for example, the kick his ass line. Oh, let's punch him in the face repeatedly for that. But yeah, this one, I think it's more a case of the writers want to blame Buffy, so they send in the character that they always send in to tell her the truth, except this time it's not the truth. This time it's just bullshit that you guys have decided this is your narrative and you're going to stick to it. But at least, I mean, it's not great, but at least we do get that very sweet speech that he gives to Anya afterwards, which is one of the only times that I actually feel the genuine connection between him and Anya. I think that's actually quite a sweet speech. But I mean, Into the Woods, we're going to have when we get into season 6, I'm going to speak more about this diminishing and belittling of Buffy Summers. The fact that we see our heroine, this amazing, amazing character and person, lower herself to run after a man who doesn't even half deserve her is so disheartening and really hard to watch. And season 6 is going to get even worse with regards to that. But I found I couldn't watch the end of Into the Woods. And basically, as soon as Xander's speech was done, I was like, I'm done. I'm not watching. It off. Yeah, I'm not watching. Went straight to the next episode.
Well,
I'm not Buffy doing.
But it's also the fact that it's very cheesy. It's a very cheesy ending. Like, it's very melodramatic, and I wasn't quite sure. Not that it matters, but I wasn't quite sure if he could hear her, and he just chose not to.
Have you ever been in a helicopter? You cannot hear anything in those things. That's why they always wear
but it's just the way it cuts to Riley's face. So I think there's meant to be a bit of.
I don't think he can hear her. I think if he'd seen her there, he would have stayed. But no, I don't think.
Or balance where he actually came round to some of her points.
Yes,
I think the scene would have worked better then, even if it ended up the same. But
I agree.
Glory's debut actually in It's No Place Like Home is which is a really great episode.
Isn't that just one of the greatest character entrances in this whole series? Absolutely fantastic. Just, the panics of the monks and the pure terror on their faces. The beast, the big banging of that massive like metal door, and then the way it just comes flying comes flying through like because she's broken it, and then this tiny little blonde just walks through, and it's just the best visual ever. Oh, I love Glory's debut. She is fantastic. And of course, in that episode, this is when we get our reveal of who Dawn is. So, of course, we open with the monks, talking about the key and all of this, protect it, the beast. And so you already start the episode with this kind of air of mystery, like, oh my God, what's happening? What is going on? What is this big bad that's suddenly coming to town? So, yeah, I really like No Place Like Home. Do you love Glory's entrance as well?
Oh yeah, it's a really great entrance, a really great debut, and just starts building the mythology of the season and the mystery around the main arc and the main villain and the magic shop is, because you get more of that in the episode, and it's a nice sort of home base for Giles. And
is this the opening? Is this yes? Because this is the one that has one of my favorite Buffy and Giles scenes. Just the hat. When she just walks in and sees him wearing the magician's cloak, and she's just like, and then just the long stare between the two of them before he's just like, Yep. Okay. And then Willow coming in. Giles, where's your hat and cloak? Yeah, the hype was getting out of control. But yeah, the magic box. I thought that, if we can just pause the glory talk for a second. I thought Giles taking over the magic box. I've always loved that storyline. I think it's fantastic. You know, it gives Giles something to do again. We get to see him, you know, stop being a. Although that being said, I did love Giles as a gentleman of leisure. I love Giles as a shop proprietor, and the magic box itself is a great set. Obviously, we get some great, you know, scenes in the magic box. I love it as a gathering place for the Scoobies, and I just love Giles. And like I said, Anya working at the magic box for me elevated her character, you know, because now she has a purpose. Now she's more integrated into the Scoobies. And I just think that she's so much help in the magic box too, you know, like she's really funny. And we get some really great moments with her and Giles in the magic box, which is so much fun.
Yeah, that stuff is great. I love Anya's, you know, really getting into like capitalism.
Yeah,
because one of my favorite lines is when they're trying to teach her how to talk to customers, and Xander says something. It's either Xander or says you're supposed to say "Have a nice day," and she's like, "Why do I care how their day was? You know,
exactly.
I've already got their money.
I already had their money." Yeah.
And then she shouts after them like, "Have a nice day."
He's so like, good for you. Yeah.
And I just love her getting all protective over the money, like no one else can handle it. And I saw it's in season 6, but I actually like her doing the money dance with Dawn in the
it's capital superiority.
Yeah.
Yep, so much fun. But, you know, the magic box gives Giles and Anya both this great little through storyline, which obviously continues for the whole season and into season 6. And I think that's really fantastic. It's just that first day, like, I just love Giles going up to Xander. He's like, Xander, there's people everywhere. And they all seem to want things. And Xander gives him what is quite possibly the worst advice. It's all right. Be cool. Stay British. It's like, what does that even mean, Xander? What you? That's not helpful in the slightest. But
I also like Giles and his new German car, which he's like really angry with, because that's another side of him. Maybe trying to move with the times, but he just hates it.
And another great exchange. Giles, are you breaking up with your car?
Yeah.
Seduce me, all red and sporty, little two-door tramp. I love it.
Yeah, that's a great
and of course, in season 6, we get a reference to it. I'm sure Dad's got some middle-aged crisis car, red, shiny, shaped like a penis. It's like, you are more right than you know, Spike. You are more right than you know. No, Giles this season, I think, is great, especially because obviously last season he was very much floundering, you know, his gentleman of leisure out being a mod jogger and all of this weird stuff. Whereas here we get to see him, you know, a little bit back in his element, actually with a purpose, with, you know, an employment. And I think it's really fun seeing him take over the magic box in No Place Like Home. And I love all of the Scoobies being there to be so supportive of him, you know, and helping out in the shop and everything. And I think No Place Like Home, again, it's another episode where I think Anya really proves her worth, because it's in this episode that we find out that there is something wrong with Joyce, and Buffy is convinced that's right. Remember, she sees the crazy person at the hospital who says something like, they come at you through your family. So she becomes convinced that her mother's sick from something demonic, from a spell. And Anya is the one that suggests that she does the trance that will allow her to see spells. And Anya's actually got quite a few moments over this season where she does things like that. And I think that's a really good side of her character, because she's been around for 1,000 years and she worked in the demonic and magic world. So of course she's going to know like all of this stuff. And I think that they really put that to good use in this season. But I think that spell that Buffy does is really fantastic. That was another really great bit of direction, I think, in this episode. And the reveal that there is something not right with Dawn. I really, really loved that. I thought that was done really well. You know, the way she sees the photos fading in and out, and then she goes into Dawn's room and she sees the room fading in and out. I just think that's done so well. And because obviously as an audience, we have been waiting for this, we fully are on Buffy's side when she decides that Dawn is evil, you know, because obviously something weird's going on here. So I think that reveal simultaneously with the introduction of Glory is fantastic.
Is that like the stuff where Joyce has gone out and Buffy starts saying things like, because she's freaked out by Dawn, so she says, like, I'm going out, and Dawn's like, I'm going to tell Mum, and Buffy's like, I'll be back first, and it's really really awkward, and I think you feel for Dawn as well. Like, it's
absolutely.
pretty rough, but like,
it is so
you're
rough.
obviously right there with Buffy, like, just piecing this all together.
Yeah. No,
it's really effective.
Just having a normal day. I mean, her sister comes into her room and throws her against the wall. It's like, Jesus Christ, poor Dawn.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Buffy and Glory's first confrontation is fantastic. It's just so good.
Yeah,
First of all, I think the visual of Glory and Buffy fighting is so much fun because obviously they look very similar in stature. So you've got these two kind of like tiny little blondes fighting each other. And then the fact that Glory is so powerful. And of course, at this point, we don't really know anything about her. So it's like such a surprise when she basically wipes the floor with Buffy. It's like, wow, who is this chick? Like, it's just insane.
Yeah, and it's quite a nice way to do that, which is a little bit different because normally throughout the season you get a build up to Buffy's first big meeting with the big bad, or at least they all hold off a big fight until the end of the season. I actually quite like how we have a few different scenes with her and Glory where Glory gets the best of her. So then ultimately at the end of the season, it makes it even more dramatic. It makes it even more important when they finally defeat Glory.
Yes, and much more satisfying. And Buffy hits her. She's like, "You hit me! What? You can't go around hitting people. What were you born in a barn?" Just so much of her dialogue is so much fun. And then of course the reveal of what Dawn is just such a punch, especially when Buffy's like, she's not my sister, and the monk's like, yeah, she doesn't know that, and it's just like, oh my god, like oh my god, poor Buffy, like in this one swoop she's found out all of this information, but then to her, Dawn is still Dawn, even with the knowledge that she is the key, she's still her sister. And I just think that, I mean, I found myself so many times over this season just marveling at how much the monks just screwed over the Summers family by putting the key in their house. All of them, There is the theory that what happened to Joyce this season is because of Dawn, and because of what the monks did, which is not a bad theory. But also the fact that I know Buffy's the Slayer and she's always had responsibility, but the fact that they whomp this massive responsibility onto her without her permission, without her consent, and then the fact that they create Dawn to be a real, living, breathing human. It's just insane what they do to the Summers.
Isn't it?
It is. It's so reckless and absolutely insane, and just really makes for some great storytelling and a lot of existentialism also, because it's like when Dawn finds out the truth, which obviously we'll talk a bit more later, but just the existential crisis that girl must go through at 15 years old,
Absolutely.
Like Jesus Christ, it is insane.
And it's such a weird thing for her to get the head around. Like in Blood Ties, I think it is where she first finds out and everything, and she goes off the deep end, and you've got all this, and she's asking, "How old am I really?" Because technically she's not, 14 or whatever age. So it's a really weird, trippy idea to get your head around.
Absolutely.
But
it's insane.
The scene with the monk at the end and that reveal is because I think that actor does a great job. He does a good job of kind of, in a way monologuing, in a way just plot exposition, but he makes it sound natural enough.
He does.
It doesn't like that.
Absolutely.
About family, because I think family for Tara is what Fredless is for Fred in Angel.
Absolutely.
That sort of episode. And I really like the episode. It's a great character-driven one for Tara, and it is the transition to her becoming, in a way, a full-blown member of Scooby. And so many of the themes about Buffy is to do with family as well, extended families. And like just the statement at the end where Buffy and Dawn stand in the way of like the father, and all the rest of them are there, and just the symbolic visual of them as family. It just even though that they're obviously in a way they're mad at what Tara did, you know, they're still there. Like she's part of their family, and they're gonna stand up to her. So
Yeah.
some beautiful Willow Tara stuff. I love the scene at the Bronze. I sort of tear up every time I see
Me
that
too.
scene. It's so beautiful, and it's Tara's birthday, and some of the stuff around that is really entertaining at the Bronze. So
It's on my top 10 character-centric episodes of Buffy. I listed this, I think this was number 7 or something, because yeah, it is such a well-done episode. We have a fantastic callback to a season 4 episode, the season 4 episode where Willow and Tara try to do the demon locating spell and Tara messes it up. It's a tiny little throwaway moment that you've almost forgotten about by this point, but obviously it gets brought back up. I also think that, you know, obviously I and other fans have picked up on this too. When Tara first appears in season 4, she definitely has the markers of someone who's come from an abusive household, or at least, at the very least, someone who's come from a household where she's been very diminished. Everything about her stance, her talk, the way she presents herself. And I think seeing the McClays in this episode, which includes a very young, very pre-famous Amy, what's her name again? Adams, yes, I almost said Acker. Yes, Amy Adams, and you know, as cousin Beth, which is fantastic. And I really like that at the beginning of this episode, we see that Tara isn't quite integrated into the Scoobies yet. You know, they're moving Buffy out of her dorm so that she can move back home. And I think Tara makes a joke, and they all just kind of look at her. And then when Willow reminds them about the birthday, they're like, "Oh, right." And then there's that. It's kind of interesting because they do, in a way, touch on the fact that Xander and Buffy might not yet 100% comfortable with Willow's new sexuality, because they have that whole thing where they're like, you know, do you think there's going to be lots of Wiccas there, you know, heavy with the Wiccan crowd? And they're like, well, Willow's into that now. And they're like, which is cool. Yeah, no, it's totally cool. And so, but I think it's very realistic, especially back then, which was what, 2000, when, you know, we didn't really talk about different sexualities the way we do now. You know, these days, Willow being gay or bi or whatever you decide her sexuality is, it would just exist. Whereas back then, and also I kind of love Xander's line, look, Tara, I just know that she likes Willow. Well, she already has one of those. But again, it kind of shows that Tara is defined by the fact that she is a witch and a lesbian. Like that's really all they know about her. So I like that we see that contrast of them not really knowing Tara to them right at the end seeing Tara's blood family and how horrible they are and going, no, we are her family. It doesn't matter that, you know, we might have had issues or we might not know her that well. We have decided that we're going to be her family. And like you said, from then on, she is kind of a fully fledged Scooby member. And I think that's really fantastic. And I think that like when she stands up to her family and tells them to go, I think that is such a great moment and such a powerful moment for Tara. And you really see a bit of a turning point in her character from here on out. She's a little bit more confident. She's a little bit more together. And that comes from standing up to her family. I did notice also, Xander, I have always believed that Xander suffers physical violence at home as well as emotional and verbal abuse. And he's got a couple of hints in here that again, kind of support that theory. Like when Tara's charming brother threatens to beat her down, Xander's like, yeah, and I swear by your full and manly beard, you will lose something trying. Like, I love it. It's Xander who instantly jumps to that defense. And I also noticed an interesting bit of framing. When Tara stands up to her family and tells them to go for good, the only person who's in frame with her is Xander. And I found that really interesting because I was like, you'd think it would be Willow or it would be Tara by herself. But I think it was Xander because he's really the only other Scooby that knows what it's like to have a truly abusive family. Like, I know that Willow's family is a bit neglectful, but Xander's family is actually abusive. So I'm wondering if they framed that to show that that's a little link that he and Tara have, that they both come from these families that are fairly horrendous, and that maybe through Tara he can get some catharsis because she's able to stand up to her family, even if maybe he's not able to stand up to his. I could be reading too much into this, but Xander's home life fascinates me, the varying hints that we get about it. So anytime there's a little bit of a building block there, I tend to latch onto it.
I think, that line did stand out to me a little bit this time around, that he was definitely implying, like, I think at the very least, psychologically abusive towards him. Whether it's actually any more than that is debatable.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they've definitely been terrible parents and, haven't really given him enough emotional support over the years and love. Yeah. So it's definitely one of those. And it's stuff that we laugh at in season 4, because a lot of the gags about them being upstairs, him in the basement. And I think that's partly Xander as a character. Like, he does find a way to, like, mask these things with humor, sort of thing.
Absolutely.
So that's definitely in tune to his character. But that's a good point. Yeah, that did.
He has some great steps this season too, Xander. Xander gets some really fun growth. And I really love The Replacement. It, like I mentioned earlier, is one of my favorite Xander-centric episodes. I think it's so good. And the fact that they took advantage of the fact that Nick has a twin to do this episode. So we had a lot of fun with that. But, I like Xander. I like seeing Xander gain some confidence. He moves out of his house. He engages in a more adult relationship with Anya. We find out that he's actually found a job that he's good at, carpentry. I think even Giles praises him at one point, and that is rare because Giles does not praise Xander ever. So I don't think Xander this season is a little bit in the background, I find, because there is a lot going on this season. But when he is there and when they do focus on him, I think they really do show how much he's grown this season and how he's become, except for Into the Woods, obviously. But for the most part, I think he's becoming like a really good person. And I just really like to see him mature and evolve a bit.
Yeah, I'll say this, I do have a lot of time for later seasons, Xander. I know there's a lot of criticism of the later seasons, and definitely some of those criticisms are fair, but I think his character development in those seasons is actually pretty strong, and it's quite nice to see him as almost a fully formed mature adult.
Yes. Yes.
And he has a good scene with Buffy at the end of I Was Made to Love You, like the way he supports her and gives her confidence. That's a really nice scene. So that's a good measure of how far he's come, I think, and how much he's grown up. So Family's a good episode, I think, generally. It's fantastic. It's an important episode for Tara. It's very emotional at times, very moving, some nice themes and imagery, and I think probably the family, like Tara's family, I think they are the weakest part of the episode just because they're not that well written. But
no, they're a bit cartoonish, aren't they? A little bit too over the top. Yeah.
But it sort of serves a purpose, so you don't really mind too much. Like the one playing the dad is like one of those character actors you see in a lot of things.
He pops up. Yeah.
And I think he does the best job out of them, really, as being a strong type villain and figurehead. But they serve their purpose, but they probably are the weakest part of the episode. But I also like the thing with Spike, the way it's revealed than Tara.
That is kind of funny.
that is, that's sort of darkly funny. It's
I also kind of like Spike's little whole, when he said, and this is one of the few times I don't mind Spike in the season, when he's all like, oh, just a bit of spin to keep the ladies in check. Oh, you're a piece of work. I like you. And I'm like, yep, that's classic.
Yeah, that's classic Spike.
But I also like that it's kind of Anya who gets the ball rolling when they're like, hope you have fun hanging out with a disgusting demon. And she's like, what kind is she?
That's a great honest scene, isn't it?
Yeah, and then when she's like, some are very evil and others have been considered to be useful members of society, So, even without Spike, they were already kind of going, okay, this sounds a little sus. What's going on here? So I do like, again, it's like the Anya just showing that she is a stronger character this season than she was last season, and much more integrated. But that whole final scene is fantastic. You know, just all of them standing up to the McClays. I love Buffy being like, you know, you want her, Mr. McClay, you can go ahead and take her. You just got to go through me first. And then Dawn's like, and me. It's like, you don't want to mess with her. She's a hair puller. And I just think it's beautiful. Yes, you are a member of the Scoobies, and we will defend you and protect you. Even if we might not understand you, you're one of us. So, you know, all Joss Whedon shows are very much built on found family. You know, they very much go for found family over blood family. And this episode definitely emphasizes that, and I think it really is one of the best character driven episodes in the show. So just a really great one. And I love Tara. Tara is such a great character, and
I think she's another one that definitely grows and grows, because I was already thinking, she's a pretty solid character already in season 4, but she definitely comes on a lot this season, and obviously it sort of starts with this episode. But lots of good stuff with her and Dawn. I like the thumb wrestling outside the magic shop.
So cute.
That's so cute, so good. Just a question, because I think one complaint people have a bit with Tara is that sometimes they use her as like the damsel in distress too much, because there's an example of that later in the season, obviously with Glory. Is that a complaint you have, or
no? I don't think so, because I don't think she's so much the damsel in distress as far as that. More as that scene just goes to show how much she actually loves Dawn and how much she's willing to put on the line for the Scoobies. I think it's more of a character building scene than a damsel in distress scene, because we see that Tara's helpful. I mean, yes, Willow is the main magic caster, but we do see that it's with Tara's strength that she is able to cast a lot of these spells. And I don't buy the damsel in distress role. I think, I mean, I can kind of understand where people are coming from, given what happens to her at the end of this season and then at the end of next season. I think it's more that she's more a bit of a tragic character than a damsel in distress. You know, a lot of tragedy does happen to Tara, and obviously when we get to season 6, we can talk about what happens to her there and all of the unfortunate implications that go along with that. But I think the Glory incident in this season is more to show, I don't feel it as a damsel in distress. I feel it as Glory was going to go after them anyway. She just happened to be the first casualty, you know, like we knew eventually Glory was going to start ripping through the Scoobies.
Amber Benson is another gem of an actress, like super underrated. There's so many actors on this show where you think, how have they not gone on to bigger things, really? Because I think that with Glory, Claire Kramer, based on this season, it's like she should have had a better career, like a bigger career. Let's talk about Fall for Love, and let's talk about Spike, because Fall for Love is one of my favourite episodes of the season. It's of course a great crossover with Angel. That's a really... because they use effectively the same sequence of the past scene with Angel or Angelus, if you want to be accurate, Spike and Drusilla in the past. So some big mythology, nice crossover. So I think this is not only a really strong Spike episode for his character, but I also think it's a really strong Buffy episode for her character, because it's really important in her stages in exploring her roots. And I think it's very natural that she would turn to Spike and be curious how he killed 2 Slayers. The flashback scenes, I think, are brilliantly done, like his fights with the other 2 Slayers. There's some great direction in those scenes. There's some great editing, like the back and forth, the way it's cutting between Spike, his descriptions, and then like him actually fighting them. So it's a wonderfully directed episode. I think it's a wonderfully written episode, and once again, because the one thing that cannot be denied is the spark and the chemistry with Sarah Michelle Gellar and James Masters, and the way they play off each other is so wonderful. So we'll talk about Spike overall in a minute, but what do you think about the episode? I think you said you were conflicted on it earlier.
Yeah, okay. So if I take my bias and my dislike of Spike out of the equation, I actually think this is a freaking fantastic episode. I actually listed this as number 2 on my top 10 character-centric episodes of Buffy. So if I'm coming from it completely unbiased and just watching it as like great TV. Oh, it's freaking fantastic. You're not wrong. The editing alone is amazing. That scene where he's talking to Buffy about fighting Nikki Wood and he's going back and forth between the alley fight and the train fight. Oh my God, it's amazing. I think that is such great work. I love seeing all four. I love the Whirlwind. I could watch an entire series just about the Whirlwind. Angel, Darla, Spike, Drusilla, they are all monsters and they are fantastic. And I do like the way that it crosses over with Darla. I think that the fact that it's a 2-parter and then we see the other part of the equation on the Darla episode, I think it's fantastic. That slow motion walk of the 4 of them through the Boxer Rebellion is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The fight with the Chinese Slayer is also done really, really well. And I do agree that this is one of the few times where I feel it is organic for Buffy to seek out Spike because, like she said, she is trying to figure out why the Slayers die young, what it is that they do wrong. And so, of course, if she's got a serial killer in her backyard, why wouldn't you go to him and ask him how he killed these Slayers? So all of that, this is a bloody fantastic episode. However, it's also an episode where I have to sit through Spike glorifying killing 2 women of color for 45 minutes, and I just don't need to deal with that. I understand that that's got, look, I know that it's got nothing to do with anything, and they obviously chose for these Slayers to be women of color to show the very, like, that the Slayer line goes through different races.
Diversity,
Unfortunately, it brings in more unfortunate implications, especially when you consider they've already killed a Slayer of color on screen and let 2 white Slayers live. You know, like we've already seen Kendra die. Now we're being introduced to 2 other Slayers of color, and we have to watch them die. Again, none of this was deliberate, and I'm not saying, you know, the writers are racist. They're obviously not. I understand why it was done. I just think sometimes when you look at these things through like a more modern lens, you're like, there are some unfortunate implications going on here. And then we get to the end of Spike's whole diatribe or whatever, and Buffy, you know, he does that whole, you know, you want to dance, and she's like, oh, even if I did, it's not with you, Spike. It would never be with you. And then she throws the money at him, and she's like, you're beneath me. And then we get this close-up of Spike, like, sobbing on the ground. And I feel like the show wants me to feel sorry for him. I don't. I'm sorry. But someone who has just spent 2 hours telling this woman how he brutally murdered these 2 girls who were pretty much of her kind, how he got off on this murder, how he, you know, found it exciting and exhilarating to kill these women, and then she tells him that he's beneath her. He is beneath her. This would be like Ted Bundy, like sitting down with Buffy and telling her everything, and then her saying, you're beneath me, and us feeling sorry for him. I don't buy this whole poor little Spike, Buffy's being so mean to him. No, it's bullshit. He is beneath her, and he needs to accept it.
I don't read that scene the same as you. I think, he's beneath her, he's pathetic, and that's what that scene shows. Okay. And obviously they're doing this overall thing in the season where he's starting to have feelings for Buffy, and that comes from partly fighting side by side. They've got this hatred, and it just comes out of nowhere. And it him does come out of nowhere. No, but what I mean is, I think that's how it goes down sometimes, where you have this person who you respect, like begrudging respect, because you are both warriors in a way, and it's sort of this thing of like, we're so competitive with each other. We hate each other so much. It's that love to hate thing. And just that thing of him having a dream and waking up, it's like, oh my God, because he's tormented by this idea, then he has those sorts of feelings. So I think what we're talking about is raw animalistic feelings that over time, this is where I think they're doing something quite bold and quite sort of dark, where it comes from a disturbing place where over time this woman or this Slayer who he's got this rivalry with, and okay, there's a little bit of a begrudging respect, like I said, but they're sworn enemies. Like, they disgust each other pretty much, and just this idea that he would suddenly find somewhere in himself where he's got actual feelings for her, like attraction, and it almost comes out for this extreme hatred, and that's where, and the begrudging respect, and that's where it sneaks up on him, and I think that works beautifully. But so I think the scene with him and the money, I think you're meant to read it as, okay, he's pathetic, and that's. But if you don't read it as that, if they do make you sort of feel for him, like, okay, Buffy, yeah, you were a bit strong there, and I'm not.
She's not.
No. Let me finish. I'm not saying I think that. I'm just saying, I think you can read the scene either way if you choose to feel a bit sorry for him, because that's what I like about Buffy as a show, is it does engage you in the villains. It does get inside their world and their head, and it does actually make them, in the context of a TV show, sympathetic. And I think that's what you forget sometimes, is if you apply this stuff to the real world, of course, in real life, someone like Spike would be just reprehensible and all the rest of it. But this is a television show. This is drama. You want to see characters go on a journey and do interesting things.
But I see, and we'll talk about this more as the season goes on. But this is my issue with Spike, and it starts in this season and it just continues through for the rest of the series. The writers, when it comes to Spike, they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want him to be an evil villain who somehow still does good, which doesn't make any sense. So, for example, you have these episodes and these scenarios where Spike will violate Buffy to the grossest degrees, and then yet at the end of the episode or the incident, something will happen and he will turn around and get rewarded for it. And it just doesn't work. Also, I have to say, I, as a fan, have never really bought Buffy, ever. I've never, ever really seen what everyone else sees when it comes to this ship. Watching it this time, okay, and usually that was on Buffy's side. Usually I would be like, I've never bought it on Buffy's side. This time around, I was having a hard time buying it on Spike's side too, because I couldn't figure out, like, I get what you're saying, like, where we're supposed to think his hatred comes from. Sworn enemies, can't kill her, so therefore I start to desire her because I'm unable to engage in violence. But, okay, so Spike has his little dream at the end of No Place Like Home. So that's Out of My Mind. So that's 4 episodes into the season. In the previous 3, so in that episode, he's going on to hug me. He's all like, she's everywhere. She's haunting me. I can't get away from her. They literally shared 3 scenes over the previous 3 episodes. I'm like, where did this she's haunting me come from? You've barely seen her. And in season 4, it's like he's still the enemy in season 4. So there's definitely nothing. But like in season 5, she has so little interaction with Spike. It's kind of hilarious that he's built up this big, like, she's haunting me. She's everywhere. Not.
Because you're talking about it like that's just something for this season. We're talking about the whole history ever since season 2. That's
just beyond creepy, though. If his feelings for her were developing from there,
no, I don't mean. Oh, maybe because of the attraction, but I just mean the overall kind of rivalry they have, like the hatred, like the.
But again, I don't. Even think
him
it's that
saying
intense.
She's haunting me. I think that comes back because when you've got such a history, and don't forget, it's a very different dynamic at this point. Because Spike, unfortunately, is in a position where he can't really go after the Slayer. So he can't really be this sort of... I mean, he can obviously take on the role he did in season 4, which we both agreed worked well. But it's like he can't actually physically go after her anymore. So I think that's where he's coming from, where he's very conflicted, because on the one hand, he's sort of half a good guy, where he's kind of on their side begrudgingly, but at the same time, he still hates her. So it's that sort of thing. It's like the conflict with Spike. And I think that makes sense to me.
I understand, I do. I understand everything you're saying, and I understand that that's what they want me to believe, but what I'm seeing on the screen does not support it. I was so surprised when we went through the first 3 episodes, and I was like, where the fuck is Spike? Isn't he more in this season? It's almost like they forget about him a lot of the time. Okay, I'm going to say something that you are definitely going to disagree with. I can tell right now you're probably actually going to disagree so hard when I say this, but it's the truth. If you took Spike out of this season, it literally would not make one lick of difference. Everything would still play out exactly the same. He is completely useless this season. He does nothing that impacts anything.
Yeah, but I don't know. That's always a strange complaint for me, and I get where you're coming from, but you could say that about a lot of characters. You could say that about Tara. You could say, but the thing is, it's about the characters. It's a character-driven show.
For me, he doesn't have a place here because, I don't buy anything on Buffy's side. Everything from Buffy this season towards Spike was either indifference or disgust, and that to me does not make for romance. Say, for example, a character like Xander, who we talked about not actually having much of an impact this season. But Xander is one of Buffy's very best friends. He's been there since season 1, so therefore it makes absolute sense that he would still be there. Spike has no ties to anyone, so it makes no sense that he's still here, except to be pathetic and pant after Buffy. So there is this theory, again, you'll disagree with this, but I actually kind of like this theory. There is a theory that Spike's feelings for Buffy were part of the monk spell. And I actually agree with that, because that whole stream and the way he reaches up out of the dream is like, oh my God, and suddenly he's in love with her. I'm like, yep, I'm with everyone else. It was part of the monk spell so that Dawn would have an extra layer of protection.
Well, that would be a hell of a retcon, I've got to say, but okay. Okay, so let me ask you a question, because I do have more defenses of Spike, and I do have more examples that I think back up my argument.
And I'm ready to knock them all out of them. Line up the bowling pins.
Yeah, let me ask you a question. So, with Spike, is your position then you don't think they should have made him a good guy in the first place?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's not just the execution, it's the fact that you think it was a bad idea to do that.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's fair enough.
I think Spike worked. Season 4 Spike, I think, is what worked the best, when he was the enemy within, when he definitely absolutely was not on the Scooby side, but he kind of had to grudgingly work with them because they had common goals. I think that was the Spike that worked the best. And as I've spoken about, I think Spike in season 5 of Angel actually has really good characterization. They're probably the only 2 Spikes I can really deal with when I think that he's actually got decent characterization.
Well, no, season 2 as well.
Oh, well, he's more of just like I think in season 2, for me, he gets a little bit overshadowed by Angelus and Drusilla, who I both find a bit more interesting. Whereas in season 4 of Buffy, it's just him. So you can appreciate him a bit more as a character, by himself, if you get what I'm saying. Like in season 2, he's very much linked to Drew and Angel. And I think he gets a little bit lost, especially once Angelus comes along. But in season 4, when it's just him, that's a lot of fun. Like I said, when we were doing our season 4 MVPs, I always gave that to Spike, which is really big for me, because we all know how I do feel about this character.
They give it a very good slow build and a very logical build. And what I mean about that is, it's not like they flick a a switch. I can't speak tonight, and he turns to the good side. Because a lot of TV shows that sort of happens, where it only really takes a few episodes and they sort of do a turn. It's not like that at all. In season 4, he has a chip in the head. There's a reason why he's an antagonist, but he sort of does have to work with the Scoobies at various times, and he does become that almost in between, where he's still like a villain in many ways. It's still the classic Spike, but like, because of circumstances, he does have to rely a little bit on the Scoobies' help, and vice versa a little bit. So from there we go on to season 5, and we get this progression over the course of the season. Now, bear in mind, he's not full-blown good guy by the end of the season. He's still not there. Like, he's pretty close, but I mean, maybe by the very end. But like, if you go throughout the season, he still feels like an antagonist, and he still feels like. And here's the thing which I like about this, and the reason it works for me, moments where he is awful and he says awful things, he does awful things, and he is creepy. But to me, that works because he is a very flawed, like, individual. He is a villain at the end of the day. At this point, he's slowly going over to the good side, but he is still essentially a villain. And James Masters has said this himself. He has said, then you can never forget Spike is a terrible character, like, as a person.
I definitely don't ever forget that. I'll let you have your say, but then I'm going to counter it. So keep going.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. That's why his turn and his transition works for me, because you still have those moments where he feels terrible, he feels creepy, he feels nasty. And that's good, because in other TV shows, they would just make it's a complete switch. He's suddenly a good guy, like a complete good guy. But they actually make it feel like it's still the same Spike. It's just then he has new allegiances, and he is now more on the good side. The slow progression from season 4 onwards. And so there's certain things, because I know, just to pick a scene, and it's a small scene, it's not really like a massive scene, but I know you've said off air, the stuff when he's like sniffing Buffy's, like,
oh God, yeah,
it's gross, it's terrible,
it's disgusting.
That's a good example of what I'm talking about, because first of all, to be fair, for such a gross scene, it is actually quite funny. They do make it quite funny.
But it's still disgusting. But I will give it to you. It is,
and that's
especially
kind of the
like,
thing about.
Gotta get their scent. Ah, yeah, that's the stuff. And Riley's like, get out of here.
Well, that's the thing about Spike, though, as a character, and the writing of him, is he can make things like that really actually quite funny in the writing and in his delivery. But the other thing is, that's a good scene to keep track of later in the season, because this is where I think he goes on an arc where at the start of the season he is still a disgusting piece of shit scumbag, but by the end of the season, not that he's fully grown out of that, but he suddenly does feel like he's got more of a sense of morality.
Does he, though?
Yeah, I think he does. I think the stuff with Dawn and with Joyce, first of all, it's sort of a beautiful sentiment, this idea that he legitimately respects Joyce as a woman. That line he has in, I think it's Forever, like after the funeral, or well, before the funeral, but that's the stuff with him leaving the flowers but not leaving his name on the flowers. That's a sign of legitimately him kind of caring, because it's not like he was looking for attention.
Yeah,
which
but
is
I mean,
the
we saw
point.
that in season 3 that he gets on with Joyce. We know that Spike can get along with individual people and have, legitimate good feelings for individual people. I don't think this is anything new or different. He likes Joyce. We saw that in season 3. Hell, we even saw that in season 2.
Well, sure, but like it wasn't really. This brings it into focus than he actually did like her. Like, whereas that stuff, you could just say, okay, it's just this weird sort of quirky comedic scene. So I think what he says in Forever actually like it actually makes it clear, and it's a big statement him not leaving. And this is what I mean. I think over the course of the season you get more and more scenes with Spike where it actually shows he's not always being self, because I think the way he protects Dawn, I think the way he looks after Dawn, like, you can argue if you want, but I don't buy that it's just because he wants to get close to Buffy. I think it is because he has that sense of morality and he actually wants to look after Dawn. Because there's a lot of things, like the way he puts himself on the line. So, like, for example, the stuff with the eggs in that episode and the monster, and he's putting himself on the line quite a lot, really. And then, which we can get to when we get to intervention, but you do you do have the fact that then he didn't, again, if you want to give Tara credit.
No. This is not the same. This is absolutely not the same.
It is the same. It is the same.
It isn't.
Why not?
Absolutely isn't.
Why not?
Spike? Okay, let's look at this.
It's even more impressive because it's Spike.
Spike is a vampire, okay? A little torture for like an hour is not going to do anything to him, like at all, okay? He's a vampire. They like torture. I mean, that was how he was going to win Drew back in season 3. All right, Glory takes him for like an hour,
but Glory's
if
a
that.
god. Don't forget.
Yeah, but again, he's a vampire. He's going to heal within 2 seconds. This is not the same as Tara, who has already expressed that she would rather die than be brain sucked, letting Glory take her sanity to protect Dawn. Spike is so unimpressive. He basically just wants to get into Buffy's pants.
But Glory could have killed Spike.
That would have been great. I've only had the whole time. I'm like, come on, Glory, rip his head off. But nah, man, I don't buy that at all. So my thing with Spike is, okay, so here's my counter argument is I don't think that he has any. The writers want to convince me that Spike's becoming a good guy. He's not. As far as I am concerned, and as far as it looks like to me, and Tara has a great quote about this in, I think it's Crush, when they're talking about the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and she's talking about Quasimodo, and she says, but he has no moral compass, no sense of right or wrong. Everything he does is in service of this one woman who will never love him back. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Spike. She's literally describing Spike. Everything Spike does is because he's obsessed with / in love with whatever Buffy. Now, I'm not going to deny that he does seem to have a genuine connection with Joyce and with Dawn, but I don't think that's anything out of the normal. Again, like I said, we've seen him connect with Joyce in season 3, and I think the reason that he likes Dawn is because Dawn admires him so much, you know, like we have that scene where he's telling her all those stories about what a big bad vampire he was. And I do think that a lot of his protection comes down to Buffy. It's like when the Buffy bot when Buffy poses as the bot to find out whether or not Spike told Glory anything. Spike specifically says, if anything happened to Dawn, it would destroy Buffy. And I couldn't do that to her. Nothing about Dawn. He doesn't care about Dawn. If Dawn died,
I don't agree. He doesn't care about, but
okay, maybe a little bit.
That shows you that he does care about Buffy. That sells that.
See, and this right here, this is my problem with Spike, and this goes so much into season 6. The writers want to show me that Spike is still evil, like you were saying. He still feels like Spike. So they want to show me that he's disgusting and will violate Buffy, and in season 6 will abuse Buffy. But then I'm supposed to feel like I'm on his side because every so often he'll do something that's good for her. Like, intervention is a great example. He violates Buffy. The Buffy bot is one of the grossest things Spike has ever done. The violation that he puts Buffy through with that Buffy bot. Oh my God. So we have this whole episode of Spike being disgusting and showing how gross he is, but because at the end he withheld, an hour of torture, big whoop, suddenly we're supposed to think, oh, he's so fantastic, even though he literally spent this whole episode violating Buffy Summers. It doesn't work for me.
I don't think we are though. I think you're reaching. I don't
but
think.
Why else would Buffy kiss him? Like, that makes no sense.
That's a good scene because of the way Buffy puts it at the end. Like, the message of the scene is good because she sort of says because she makes a point of saying the robot's gone. The robot was gross and disgusting.
Yeah.
It wasn't real. What you did for me in Dawn, that's real. So that's the reason why that scene works so well.
No, but why would she kiss him? That doesn't make that was pure fan pandering. That was saying, yeah, we're going to start building Buffy and Spike, which makes no sense because up until that point, she treated him with nothing but indifference or disgust.
Well, no, because I think the reason she kisses him is just for a misdirect because you're supposed to think.
But it doesn't work. You could have revealed that she wasn't the bot in a million different ways.
Spike is growing, but he's still a very flawed character. And that's why this stuff works. Like, No, because it's a message. It's a message to him by the end. He screws up badly by doing that whole Buffy bot thing. And he gets reminded of the difference between good and bad at the end. Like, literally good and bad. So that's why it works for me.
It just...
And then by the end of the season, he's in a place where he's part of the team. Like, he's definitely he's doing selfless things. And we'll get to the GIF when we get there, but his stuff in that is just fantastic. Like,
yeah, but again, it's only motivated by one thing. It's motivated by Buffy. Buffy died at the end of The Weight of the World. Spike would fuck off and leave the rest of them to deal with Glory in the Gift. There's no way he would stick around if Buffy died. The only reason he sticks around in season 6 is because of his guilt. But we'll get to that when we get to that. But I
love the way you've just like contradicted your point because then he does stick around in season. Oh,
because of his guilt. But that's only because of his guilt over Buffy.
Yeah, but then you've just said he would have fucked off if she died in the way.
Yeah, because he didn't have any guilt there. He actually believes that he's responsible for Buffy's death at the beginning of season 6, and that's why he has stuck around. Plus, he's pathetic, and he doesn't seem to be able to remember.
I'm not sure. I can't remember that stuff, so I don't know why it would be his fault anyway, but...
The writers on Buffy, they want me to believe that with Spike, the good outweighs the bad. But for me, it just doesn't. I can't watch Spike do the shit that he does in season 5 because the writers, you can't say, I am perfectly fine with bad characters. Some of the characters I love are horrendous characters, but the narrative has to support that. The narrative around Spike doesn't support that. The narrative around Spike wants me to, like I said, the writers, they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want me to believe that Spike is capable of good and capable of being moral, but then they keep showing me that he's actually not. He has no boundaries. He has no idea like how to actually express emotions, which makes sense because he's a soulless vampire.
Yeah.
Like, that part makes sense. I don't think he has any growth this season. He's basically the same Spike he's always been. He's obsessed with Buffy, so he's obsessed with a woman, okay? Used to be Drusilla, now it's Buffy, and all of his motivation comes from that. Does he connect with Joyce and Dawn? Sure, but we've seen him connect with Joyce before. This isn't something that's new. Understand how someone can love Buffy Summers and believe that Spike could even be close enough to being good enough for her, ever. So how do you watch this season and watch him literally chain her to a wall and threaten to kill her and then go, oh, yeah, Spike loves her. He's deserving of her love. He's little Spike.
Well, I don't think I did say that.
I just mean in general. In general. I'm not sorry, that wasn't aimed at you specifically. That was just aimed at Spike fans in general.
Shades of grey. I like characters with shades of grey, and I think
I don't think he's got shades of grey, though. I think he's just an arsehole who has the occasional...
Yeah, but that makes the character more interesting. Inconsistencies lightened up in scenes like the scene with Joyce and the flowers. because the speech he gives to Xander is he said, I like the woman. She didn't put airs and graces on, and she always had a good cup of tea. I think that's a great line from Spike, and I think, again, the statement of him not leaving the name, because so much of the complaint like you have with Spike is him being self-centered, egotistical, and all that. Well, clearly he's not in that scene, because if he was, he would have left a name.
Okay, so there's like one scene in the entire season where I could possibly give him. That's the only one where I could explain it away. Yeah, but all the other scenes I don't believe show that he's grown. I think they just show that he's obsessed with Buffy, which we know.
Except the stuff with Dawn, because he clearly is looking out for Dawn. And also, there's an episode where he makes a point of saying to Dawn, you can't tell Buffy about this. Like,
yeah. You're talking about Forever when he helps her get the demon eggs?
I think so, yeah. Because she would kill me, and there is some empathy there with, I think, what they're going through, because this idea of he helps Dawn try to bring her mother back, and I think there's something where he emphasizes. I mean, maybe because he had a lot of time for Joyce as well, but like, there is something to do with that, where he's able to tune into like real emotions, and like, in a way, he's the sort of character where, even though for many times he's soulless, heartless, all the rest, in a funny sort of way, because he is this outsider to human emotions, he actually understands them the best, because he has the line to Buffy about, it's when it's later on in the season where Tara's been put in jeopardy and Willow goes after Glory, and Spike actually understands that. He actually says, yeah, for the right person I would do it. And
of course Spike understands obsessive love. No one is disagreeing with that. Of course Spike understands Willow's motivations there.
No, but I just think that's a good example of him understanding humans and human emotions, and I think it's a good character moment for Spike.
He does his supposed good stuff. How come that outweighs the disgustingness? Like, shouldn't the grossness outweigh the other stuff as opposed to vice versa? Like, shouldn't the fact that he builds a Buffy bot and violates Buffy's bodily autonomy, the fact that he tries to kill Buffy, the fact that he threatens Buffy when she won't say that she loves him back, the fact that he stalks her, the fact that he steals her clothes, the fact that he sniffs her underwear, why doesn't all of this outweigh the supposed good stuff? And this is what drives me crazy about, and again, not talking about present company, but the Buffy fandom and the Spike fans in general, they want to wax lyrical about how Spike can do this, and this, but then they ignore the fact that, like, he's disgusting, and the amount of violation and abuse that he puts Buffy through starting this season should outweigh any good that he does. And I don't understand why it doesn't.
But maybe it does. There's room for different interpretations.
But in this Buffy fandom, it doesn't. Like 90% of the time with Spike fans, it doesn't. They never want to acknowledge this side of him. It's
character arc. I think he does end up in a very different place than he starts on the show. But I'm not saying it's like this super like sort of 360 or like he's completely different. But that's what I like about it, because he shouldn't be. You know, it makes sense for the character not to completely... Because, again, if you look at other TV shows in this genre, it's like a magic trick. It's like, it's very much white hat, black hat. So a villain is black hat 1 minute, and he's white hat as soon as they decide to turn him into a good guy for the sake of the plot. That doesn't happen with Spike, and I think that should be applauded, because they make it feel like more of a natural character sort of arc and development, and it still feels like classic Spike.
I think we're going to have to disagree on this, because for me, Spike did not change, and he also did not feel integrated into the Scooby Gang for me. I mean, I was I was tracking this season because I was really trying to figure out, like, to see if I could see anything different on Buffy's side or whatever. He spends so little time with the Scoobies. He spends so little time interacting with them. The few times that he does, he's often met with disgust and outright hatred. And then all of a sudden at the end, he's just brought in. And the excuse that Buffy gives is that he's the only one strong enough to stand up against Glory. But we already know that that's bullshit because we've seen her wipe the floor with him. So that's another thing for me. I felt that Spike this season just did not have a place, and that the only reason he was there was because James Master was so popular and the character was so popular they didn't want to get rid of him. But they kept having to remind us that he was there. Like, there were whole episodes where all of a sudden they just pop. Okay, for example, No Place Like Home that we were talking about, okay? Such a great episode. And then all of a sudden the episode just halts so that Buffy can run into Spike outside her house, have a 5-minute conversation with him, and then it's got nothing to do with anything. It's just to remind us that he's there. It might be a great scene.
It's one of the 5 words. Out for
that's a great line.
Bitch. A couple of episodes. Like, they have a bit of a B-movie feel to me. Especially... Well, Listening for Fear, which I do have a soft spot for. It's a bit of a weird one because, again, it goes into sci-fi territory and
kill a snot monster from outer space.
Yeah, I enjoy those cute little rug snot monsters, but they're talking to me on a B movie level, so I do quite enjoy that, and I quite enjoy the metaphor of the stuff happening with Joyce around them, and there's some good ideas, but I think it's just a fun B movie style episode. But it's another one that does feel like more like an X-Files episode than
definitely.
Willow and Tara. I love when they're stargazing, and that's kind of when they first noticed this thing coming towards Earth.
That one's really cute. I find from Shadow through to about, from Shadow Listening to Fear, Into the Woods and Triangle, I find these to be probably the weakest, lot of episodes through this season, for me anyway. Although that being said, watching them this time around, I didn't find them as weak as I remember them being. So, I actually did not mind Listening to Fear. Into the Woods, I agree with you, it's a well-structured episode. It's well done, I just hate the ending. Triangle... Yeah. I know Triangle's supposed to be a bit of a breather episode, but it's not that great.
It's fine. I enjoy the Willow on feud.
That stuff is kind of cute.
And I do tell both actresses are really good comedic actresses.
Yeah. But I think it's a bit weaker. I don't the whole bit with Buffy constantly crying is a little bit.
Yeah, I hate that stuff. I think it's one of Buffy's weakest episodes.
Yeah.
As a character. So.
Yeah, me too. Shadow, I don't mind because it moves the Joy stuff forward, but it's not an episode. Not a lot happens in that episode, which is really interesting. No. It's not, we get Glory, we get a bit of Glory, which is always good. She has one of my favorite lines, which is, "Chill, worm, I'm going to make you a star," which I absolutely love. Oh, what is with this show and bad looking snakes, man? This is the 3rd one we've had. It's come on. Buy the stuff from the magic box, Giles being like, she could be anywhere, and you turn around and there she is. And I also love Anya finding the receipts, but hey, Anya, your hays are startling the customers. Yeah, and pretty much the state. And then when she's all you sold those this and this, and are you stupid or something? Allow me to answer that with a severe firing. Again, I love that this is showing that this is using Anya. It's using the fact that she's been around for 1,000 years. So yes, she knows this stuff. And I really like, and I love her snitching on Giles later. And Buffy's like, well, how'd she get away with all this stuff? And Anya's like, Giles sold it to her. You what? So I thought that was a whole great bit. So I think that these 4 episodes, they all have some really good parts, but I think overall, most of them you just say are they're good episodes. I don't think they're fantastic episodes. And I think this run, for me, is a bit of a slog to get through because this is the Riley stuff. We have to deal with him leaving. We have to deal with all of that stuff. And, this is just post all the Joyce stuff. So we've had all the build up for the Joyce stuff. And then obviously later on we have her death. But this is when the operation's happening and she's just getting better. So I feel like there's
some good drama though with that stuff. And
there really is. And I think
this is where you really feel for Buffy and what she's going through.
My God, That scene in Listening to Fear when she brings Joyce home and she's got that cheery like music playing and she's doing the dishes and she just breaks down.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like Buffy in this season, Simon and I kept talking about this. We were like, why is this show punishing Buffy? It felt like it was punishing her, you know, like she's already got the weight of the world on her shoulders since she was 16 years old. She's always had like such a responsibility. And now you give her the key and her mother's sickness and her mother's death and having to look after Dawn. And you just think, oh my God, it's just too much. She's only one girl. Like, she is such a strong character. And I think in this season, Buffy really shows how resilient she is and how strong she is, because the amount of crap that she has to deal with in this season is unbelievable. And it's just amazing to see her get through it and actually move through it. And all the stuff with Joyce. And I think that this season really emphasizes how much Buffy needs her mother, because I mean, if you look at her after Joyce's death and the way she just spirals downhill, it's so sad. Like, a lot of the fandom does seem to hate Joyce. I don't know why. She's not a popular character, but I have always loved Joyce. I think she does the absolute best that she can. Does she make mistakes? Absolutely. But every parent does. And I think that this season really shows how much Buffy depends on her mom. I think she even says at one point, she's like, you know, I can slay things and I can kill things, but Mum was the strong one. She was the one that always knew what to do. And I just think it's so sad to see Buffy go through this. And as if it wasn't bad enough her going through this, she's got Dawn on top of it. And so we see how she has to be the adult because Dawn is the child. And I think that's just really hard on Buffy. And I really feel for her this season. I had so many times when all I wanted to do was just wrap her up in a blanket and tell her that everything would be okay, because she goes through so much this season. It's really amazing.
Yeah, like the whole thing with her in the hospital and the drama, it does feel really true to life, and it's very well done, and I do quite like it's the strength of this season, and obviously the show in general, the way it mixes in the supernatural stuff with like the human stuff, and I
think this season does that very well.
This is one of the best examples of it, and once again, it just builds and builds, you know, the stuff that Buffy has to deal with on top of having to confront this god who's coming for her sister, who's a key. So once again, it makes her journey and her eventual victory over Glory all the more satisfying because of what she's gone through. More tragic in this sense because it is out of the blue and they weren't really expecting it. But it's so well done. It's such a good
And I think Christine Sutherland's really good as well in portraying Joyce's illness and, you know, when she goes a little bit crazy. I really love the scene when it's in Listening to Fear again. So the episode itself might not be that great, but it's got some great moments. When at the end, she says to Buffy, she's like, I had a moment of, I felt it. Dawn isn't mine, is she? And, you know, you have that. And she's like, but she is precious. She does belong to us. And I really love that scene of Joyce being able to see that Dawn is not actually hers. But I think it then emphasizes that even though she might not have been real originally, she is very real to Joyce and to Buffy, and they love her very, very much. And I think that really emphasizes it, and I just really like the acting there. But you mentioned that you like Blood Ties and that it was a lot stronger. Not Blood Ties, Into the Woods. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong one. So this stretch of episodes from like Shadow through to Triangle, how do you go when you watch them? Because like I said, it's a bit of a slog for me, but do you like them maybe a bit more?
I think I do. I'm not saying they're the best episodes. I think there are. I mean, for me, obviously, I'm not a big Buffy v Dracula fan, so I would definitely say that's a weaker episode than these. But that's obviously at the start of the season. It's not really a slog. I agree they're probably on the lesser end of the quality this season, but I do enjoy certain B-movie style moments.
You a very, very serious question.
Okay.
Do we suspect that there is a connection between Ben and Glory?
Yeah.
I can't believe we haven't mentioned Ben yet, because he is quite integral to
I kept meaning to bring him up, actually, at certain points. Yeah. Well, And that's almost a gag at the end of the season, isn't it? Because they keep forgetting, and Spike is the only one he knows, and that's so funny. But so let's talk a bit about Ben. I think this is a good part to talk about him, because he's introduced as like this intern at the hospital, and you sort of figure he's going to have a bigger role because he does keep popping up, but you have no idea where they're going with his character. Like, I think for a while you just assume he could be like the next love interest for Buffy,
I think that's what we were supposed to think, because he has a few scenes with her and they're a little bit flirty and stuff, but you don't really know who he is. But in listening to Fear, I think that's the first one where we find out that he is connected to Glory somehow. Again, yes, but what kind? But yes, we don't know what kind of connection there is. But I do find that, they drop that little nugget that he's the one that summoned the Queller demon. And then he has that little cryptic line of like, I'm just cleaning up Glory's messes like I have done my entire life. And you go, ooh. And you're like, what is going on here? And I think it's very interesting the way they build that up to its reveal.
Oh, yeah, I agree. So, this stuff with Ben and Glory and the body swap thing, them being brother and sister, it instantly makes his character far more interesting. Because, I don't know, I don't think the actor's the best, and
he's not the best,
I think
but
potentially
he works
could have become another Riley if they just went down that role. So I'm pleased that they didn't do that, and it's actually quite a good thing that Buffy makes that decision. Then it's just not the time to date you. And I mean, they clearly just did that because of the way things were going to end, like, by the end of the season. But at the same time, it's a good moment for Buffy that she makes that choice, and she's just not ready for a relationship at the moment. Yeah. But no, it's very interesting stuff, the whole dynamic with Ben and Glory. And what I like about it is there's shades of grey, because by the end of the season, he's actually doing quite shady stuff, because for a lot of the season, it's played as he's the good side and she's the bad side. But in the finale, he does some really questionable and quite selfish stuff, like stuff which in a way you can understand from it.
Oh, I think it's definitely understandable.
But it's still very morally like questionable.
Oh yeah, even Glory says, she's like, give the boy a break, he just wants to live. Most people would probably do the same. But I love the little hints that we get that they're connected, and you think at first, you're like, oh, is he working for her? Are they like, is he a god? Like, is he like evil as well? Is he overpowered? And then I absolutely love in Blood Ties when he's talking to Dawn, he mentions, I have a sister too, and you think, oh, okay, they're siblings, he must be like the good sibling. And then you get that brilliant, she's coming, she's here. And it's like, it's another really one of just those wham moments that just makes you go, what in the hell? I also think it's a great way to... Glory's one of those villains who is almost overpowered. She's at the point where it's like, well, why even bother? Like, she could just decimate the entire town. So showing that she's forced to share her body with Ben gives you the explanation for why hasn't she attacked before? Where was she here? Like it kind of gives you an explanation for why, even with all her power, she still can't take down, Buffy and the Scooby. So I think that was a really great way of like containing her power and adding an extra layer to her character. And especially because we find out that being in Ben's body makes her insane. That's why she has to brain suck people, and that going insane is not a pleasant experience for her. I mean, she describes what it's like to Tara. We see her when she's on the brink of almost, going completely mad when they bring her like a new person, and she's like huddled in the corner. And it's just, I find it really interesting. I think also at one point someone says, and she's forced back into her living prison of flesh and meat, and it's like, oh my god, is she conscious in there? And it's like, it just opens up so many really interesting aspects to Glory as a character and gives her a little bit more depth than just shallow hell god. So I think her and Ben and that dichotomy is just really fantastic. And of course we get some great comedic moments. Is everyone here very stoned? We just get some really great fun.
Ben as this reliable everyday guy who's starting to get closer to Buffy and Dawn, you know, like, they strike up quite a thing, and that then makes it even more. It's like, oh my god, he's like Glory's brother, and at any time he could turn back into Glory, and that suddenly makes you even more fearful. And also, we've got to say this, and I think this is definitely subtext for like being a transgender type thing. I think without a doubt, because you also have like the funny images of him waking up in Glory's clothes as well, which is pretty good stuff. The example of them doing a transgender type thing.
Body dysmorphia, the idea that your body doesn't belong to you and can change into something else. Definitely a bit of body horror in there as well for Ben. You know, been cool. It's kind of linked into this. In Family, we see Ben at the hospital when the baromone, the bone marrow sucking demons come along, the whatever they are. We see one of them like advancing towards him, and then Glory appears out of nowhere. It's like, I need to talk to you. If you look really closely at Ben's locker in that scene, you can see that he has a dress in his locker, which is obviously there for Glory to change into. You don't really notice it the first time you watch, or if you do notice it, you might think, oh, okay, maybe he has a sister or a girlfriend or something. But I love little details like that show you that they really have planned, you know, the reveal. The fact that in that episode we see that there's a dress in his locker. It's just so good. I love stuff like that. So I think the whole Ben and Glory dichotomy is it's fantastic and really adds some layers to Glory's characterization and like the living hell that she's having to go through. Because if you think about it, Glory might be the most powerful big bad that Buffy has battled, but she's kind of the one with the least diabolical plan. You know, like everyone else wants to end the world or turn into a giant snake demon or, you know, just bring on the apocalypse or set the judge loose on people. Glory just wants to go home. That's literally her only goal. She doesn't care that by going home, she'll unleash hell on Earth. Like, that's just a fun little side effect. But she's like, she's one of the only big bads that her big plan is not diabolical or even really that evil. She just wants to go home and wreak havoc in her old dimension. I mean, the fact that she was exiled from there in the first place really sucks. You know, you find out that she just grew too powerful and the other gods went, hey, not so much, and got rid of her. So she actually has a bit of a tragic backstory when you think about it.
That's true. And I do like that reveal in I think it's the finale, isn't it?
It's the weight of the world, the Knights of Byzantium.
Before, yeah,
even Buffy kind of has a bit of a giggle. She's like, that's Glory's big plan, to go home. It's like, but the chaos that she's going to cause in doing so could be a problem. I mean, even her brain sucking. I'm not saying Glory isn't evil. She obviously does enjoy inflicting pain, but like even her brain sucking is actually kind of a necessity. You know, she needs to suck the brains, otherwise she herself ends up in massive amounts of pain and mental torture. So it's like she's not even really that evil. She's just she's just kind of destructive, you know? I think that's a better term for Glory.
But then a lot of times they are some of the better villains where there is like a bit more complexities or you can kind of see it a little bit from their point of view. These stereotypical like sort of pretty boys, but they're not very charismatic. They're pretty bad at, like, I think this time that works because that's the idea, is then that's what Dawn and Buffy see. They see him as this like likable, attractive sort of guy who's like quite young and friendly, but then there's this darkness beneath that and the reveal. So that's why it works, I think, because there's also this idea of him being a bit more forward thinking compared to like the other doctors at the hospital. Like maybe they're a bit more old school and set in their ways. So it definitely works once you see where they're going with his character.
Checkpoint? We should talk about Checkpoint, because Checkpoint is fantastic.
It's a great episode. It's an absolute gem of an episode. And Yeah, no, I mean, let's talk about it because it's really great. It's such a big episode in the season, and
I think obviously this one definitely ties into Buffy's journey of, you know, rediscovering her Slayer roots and everything. And I hate the council, but I love that they brought them back to show like just how useless they really can be.
Yeah.
And, you know, the way they come in swinging their weight around, closing down the magic box and, you know, threatening to deport Giles and all of that. It really cements like just how horrible and awful the Watchers Council can be and how desperate for power they are. But what I also love is like everyone's reactions to them. Anya in particular, like poor Anya is so nervous about them finding out that she's like an ex-demon. So I think that's really fun. You know, I love the interviews that they do with their friends. I love Willow and Tara's interview. It's hilarious. I love how proudly they're like, it's like, I need to know about your relationship. It's like, we're friends, best friends, girlfriends. Yes, we're lovers. We're gay, lesbian type lovers. And I'm like, yes, you go, girl.
That's funny. That's really good.
And I also think Spike, again, I'll give him some props here. I think him flirting with the female watcher is actually quite funny.
It's actually quite funny that they would go to Spike, but that's one of those things. But yeah, that seems good.
Yeah, like I like when he's all like, oh, you've heard of me, have you? And she's like, oh, I wrote my thesis on you. And it's like, okay. So that's really fun. We also get introduced to the Knights of Byzantium in this episode. So yes, another force for Buffy to reckon with, like Jesus Christ. But we get that absolutely fantastic scene between Buffy and Glory at Buffy's house, which is one of my favorite confrontations between the two of them. Yeah, because up until then, we'd only really seen them engage in fist fights. In this one, we actually get to see them talk and interact. And of course, the scene is so full of tension because we know the kind of strength and power that Glory has. So to see her here in Buffy's home, like 2 inches away from Dawn, is just terrifying. And I think Claire Kramer's good in that scene. Yeah.
And it's sort of quite funny them or tense them trying to navigate that because like Dawn is almost her worst enemy in that scene because she's being like, don't tell me what to do. I can take care of myself. And like dramatically it works so well because she has no idea who Glory is. And
no.
And I like stuff like that earlier in the season because it works so well because Glory doesn't know yet, and she doesn't know till right near the end of the season, like, then Dawn's the key. So it just works really well where you have these little scenes where they're in the same room and she could kill her right there and then, but like in a way she's got no reason to because she doesn't know this stuff. But so it's almost like if you mess with me, I probably will kill you. But if you stay out of my way, I've got no reason to do any damage. So.
There's just so much great tension in that scene. Like I said, just Glory's power. And then, when Dawn's there and you're like, shit, the key is like literally within reaching distance of Glory. Like it's so lucky that Glory herself can't perceive the key, And then when she's all like, kid, come here, and you're like, no, Dawnie, go back upstairs, don't go near her. And I think Claire Kramer's just so good in that scene, especially like when she's watching the back and forth between Buffy and Dawn, and then like Dawn says something like, you're always talking about stuff I don't understand, and Glory's like, I bet you she keeps stuff from you all the time.
I quite like her trying to plant the seeds. That's really good.
I think that's really great. Fantastic showdown at the end, which, let's face it, is like one of Buffy's like greatest moments ever, just when she comes in and tells the council that they suck. And
she lays it on the line.
I absolutely love
an iconic speech.
I love the bit where like the guy goes to speak and she throws the sword at him and she's like, I'm pretty sure I said no interruptions, okay? And then I love when she says to him, you didn't come here to ask, to see if I could be let back in. You came here to beg me to let you back in. And it's just like, you're awesome. And the way she said, also I absolutely love when they're like, civilians, we're talking about children. She's like, we're talking about 2 powerful witches and a 1,000-year-old ex-vengeance demon. Willow's a demon. I love
And
Anya
that
for
brings it back around. Yeah, no, that's actually one of my favourite on the scenes.
Me too.
Because it's so good, yeah, her trying to cover herself.
And I also love the boy has clocked more field time than all of you put together, because it's like, yeah, you don't discount Xander. I know that he's the only team normal person, but you don't discount Xander. Just absolutely not. And then
I also like when they're going through like the trials and stuff. I like how you've got like the scarecrow and like she knocks like the guy into the scarecrow or something. That's really good.
And also like Giles trying to give her like the instructions. It's like, hit him, thanks Giles, you know, when he so good. And I just love any moment where Buffy reasserts her power, you know. This is similar to her at the end of season 3 saying, you know, tell the Watchers Council, you know, I'm not working for them, and then they're in England, I don't think they know which way my back is turned. This is like a very similar moment. I love when she reminds everyone that it's her. She is in power and she is the one that they need to like fall in line with. And it's such a moment. Like you feel like applauding along with the Scoobies, don't you? Like you want to be like, yes, you go girl. It's so fantastic. And then of course
it's definitely
again, there's so many of these moments in this season, that absolutely fantastic wham line at the end. Glory isn't a demon. She's a god. And you just go, oh, you're like Buffy. You're just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a great way to end the episode. And that's why it's even more perfect than we have Glory appear in the middle of the episode, because that becomes important at the end where we finally get an answer to what she is. And
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great way to cut to credits. And also, I just gotta give praise to the actor who plays Quentin Travis.
Isn't he so good?
He's great. They cast that role to perfection, and he is a real sort of character actor because he is in Ozark. He has a regular role in that show. I've also seen him in Deep Space Nine, the Star Trek show. So he is a real character actor, but yeah, they couldn't have cast, you know, this stuffy, snobby, head of the Watchers.
Kind of,
No, he's so good, and the way he delivers that final line, she isn't a demon, she's a god, like, he really puts some weight behind the delivery. So he's a great actor.
Okay, so we get that reveal, but we still don't get the entire story until like later on in the season. So they're still teasing us, you know? So it's like, okay, she's a god. What does she want? Why is she here? What's going on? Like, we still don't know the answers to these questions. And I think that really helps to keep us interested in the season. You know, they very easily could have just dropped all of the Glory information in one go. But I like that we get it in these little bits and pieces until we reach the end of the season and we finally have the full, complete picture. But they kind of tease it out over the season. And I think that's like a really fun way to reveal this big bad as the season goes on.